All right, now that we are done with all of our components, except for a couple that we're going to want to wait until the last minute to do, let's actually start putting together the Wimshurst machine. You should start seeing it take shape after this. The components you're going to need, you're going to need your 2 rubber bands, you're going to need your 4 bearings, you're going to need your wheel, you're going to need your 2 conductive plate supports, you're going to need your 2 conductive plates, you're going to need your conductive plate axle. You may want the base here. This might be good to have as a bit of a guide. It's nice to have the crank, although we might not need that yet. Once we use the crank, we're probably going to need sandpaper with it. So if we end up using the crank, we'll end up using the sandpaper as well. And that should be about it. Let's start putting this guy together. First thing I want to do is get the bearings in where they need to be. One of the bearings is going to be going into each support plate. Notice that I am able to, or I'm having an easier time putting the bearing down and then pushing the plate onto it. And that way when I press it flat, the bearing should fit in pretty much exactly. We also want our bearings in the spinning conductive plates. I'm going to do that here. I'm also pushing off from the bottom, but we are going to make a small adjustment to that. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to push it down a bit and then flatten it up here. That way, the bearing is flush with the top bit, the side that's got the conductive plates up. As we're doing this, be careful that you don't accidentally rub off one of the aluminum plates. If you do, just glue it back down, but it's easier to not have to redo that part. All right, great. We've got our spinning discs, we've got our supports, we've got all that set up. All right, next, pick one of these supports. I'm gonna grab this one. Doesn't matter which one you do, they are identical. I'm gonna use the other one in a second, so don't throw it. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to take my spinning wheel and I'm going to shove it into, be careful while you're doing this, into the bearing here on the bottom. I don't want to go all the way up to the shape here. I want there to be, let's see if you can see this in the camera, a little bit of room here. This is a little too much room, but I'm going to push it in a little bit further. If you were pushing it like this and you put your thumb in here, you should feel the axle press against your thumb. And once you do, you know it's time to stop. Let's see, this is about as much space as I've got. And you should be able to test it by giving it a spin. You'll notice that this is not perfectly straight, and that's because it's 3D printed and it's not perfect. Plus I bent it a little bit. You can try and fix it and go for it if yours is not super flat. Mine only isn't because I put this together and took it apart, and when I took it apart I bent it a little bit. Alright, great. Next we're going to take, I'm going to take both. No, I think I want to just use one. I'm going to take this wheel and thread it. No, I am going to take both wheels. So both wheels together. I'm going to thread it in between the 2 wheels of the spinning bit. Sorry, I know those bearings work well now because I can't get a good grip on them. Okay, there we go. And I'm going to thread the axle through here. Should be a relatively smooth fit. And then I need to get the axle to sit in the hole on the bottom. You'll see that there's a hole down here. You want it to sit in there. There we go. Now I've got mine in. Awesome. Okay. We should see that the wheel can spin without it really messing with this wheel too much. If it messes with it a little bit, that's okay. Just know that it will slowly but surely, depending on how well you glued these down, rub up the foil. So that's one of the benefits to not gluing this, because you can always make that adjustment. Okay, now for probably the most frustrating part of this procedure, we need to thread on both of our rubber bands. The first one here, we're going to put on the top, and we're actually going to put a twist in it. The reason why we're putting a twist in it is so that it spins in an opposite direction to the one on the other side. The other one, we're not going to put a twist in it. All right, so what I like to do with this, and go slow. If you start to get frustrated, take a step back, relax, and come back to it. I'm going to start off by putting my rubber band on my bottom wheel here. Okay. And notice it fell off the trench, and so I got to start over, and that's okay. I've put these together maybe 20 times. No, maybe not 20 times, but like 5 or 6 times, and I still am getting it to fall off there, and that's so that's just a thing that's going to happen. Okay, so now I've got my rubber band on the trench here. I'm going to hold the rubber band from the sides so that way it doesn't slip off, and I'm going to pull it out a little bit, trying not to twist it or trying not to spin it here. Like, see, it's spinning. I don't want to do that. I'm going to twist it over and lay it on this guy. Like this, so that, see, there's a twist in here. I'm not letting go yet because notice it fell off the track. That's why I'm still holding it. I'm gonna put it back on the track and slowly let go, and see, that works. And notice when I spin this wheel, it actually spins the top wheel much faster and in the opposite direction. So when I'm spinning this clockwise, this one's going counterclockwise. All right, from here, we are going to take our top support, and I'm going to thread it onto my 2 axles. Got a bottom axle and a top axle. I think it'd probably be easiest to do the top axle first, because there's a lot more wiggle room with that. And then, once you're on, get it on the bottom axle here. Remember, we don't want to go all the way through. But there we go. All right. So now, you may ask yourself, what about the other rubber band? Let's do that. So I'm going to flip this over. And now I'm going to take my rubber band, I'm going to stretch it real big and get it nice and over this bit. Our goal, I'm not letting go yet, our goal is to thread it onto both the trench of the spinning conductive plate and the trench of the wheel here. I'm going to try and get this as close as I can to the wheel here, but notice if it spins, it's going to want to come off. Good with that. Right, so now I've got that on there. This is probably going to come off, and that's going to be okay. I'm going to try and hold it like this. And then I'm going to maybe use some tweezers or pliers. I didn't put tweezers in the list of things you might need, but we're going to need something to be able to grab that rubber band. Can you actually see that in the camera? Grab that rubber band and pull it out and wrap it around the top bit. All right, so now I've got this. All right, cool. From here, I'm going to place it in my base. Notice I didn't glue any of these parts, so it's very take-apartable. It also means things are not going to be perfectly set up. I'm going to take the bit that's got the hole in it, the part that the crank is going to be in, and put it on the outside, one of these. Let's fit this in. Be careful, this is intended to be a tight fit. If you end up pushing this in too hard and it all falls apart, it's par for the course. Just the way it works. All right, and now we've got our Wimshurst machine on there. I'm going to test this out. So I'm going to take my crank, and we need to fit our crank in here, in this bit right here. And you'll notice that the crank is a tight fit, and that's because I don't want you to have to super glue it. You will eventually want to super glue it if it's a permanent part, but it is a tight fit, and that means you're going to be pushing kind of hard to get this in there. I do think this is, if you're going to use sandpaper, this is when you're going to use it. To sand this down just very slightly, because we do want it to be an ultra snug fit. So I'm going to take my sandpaper and sand this down a little bit. Now I super hope I do this in one take, because now it's sanded. Alright, let's crank that around a little bit. Just took a little bit off and thread it into the hole here. You know, when I originally designed this print, it was to have a kind of screw shape, so it would fit in well, but that didn't work. It didn't work at all. Okay, I'm going to keep taking some off until I can get that crank in there. And if we need to glue the crank in, whatever, we'll just glue the crank in. Alright, took a little bit more off. Let's give it light wiggles. If you push too hard, you may end up damaging any of the parts. Okay, there we go. And now, without further ado, I'm going to make sure that my wheels are not touching. They can touch each other. That's totally fine. They cannot touch the actual spinning wheel part, because that will wear off the aluminum plating. All right, now I'm going to crank this and see that the 2 bits spin in the opposite direction. All right, and we are all set with the main components. Hopefully you can see the parts that you could... sorry, that's probably loud. Hopefully you can see the parts that you could maybe replace with, or glue. But certainly it seems to be working without glue as well. So you may be able to put it, take it apart and put it back together again. If you're a teacher, having students do this might be an option as well. All right, any places you feel resistance might just mean that things need to be pressed a little closer or a little farther away or whatever. But we are good to go for the next step.